This is James Taylor, and you're listening to The Creative Life. The Creative Life podcast is a show created for you, the creative. If you're looking for inspiration, motivation, and advice while at home, at work, or on your daily commute, then this show is for you. Each episode brings you a successful creative, whether that's a musician, writer, artist, designer, performer, educator, or creative entrepreneur. They share their journey, their successes, their failures, their creative process, their insights, and much, much more. In this episode, I speak with Iannarino, and we speak about finding your voice as a creative, discovering your dream clients, and the art of the close. Enjoy this episode. Hey there, it's James Taylor. I'm delighted today to be joined by Iannarino. Anthony is internationally recognized as a thought leader in sales, with his award-winning The Sales blog being read by 65,000 people each month. He has been named one of the 50 most influential people in sales by Top Sales World and was also named one of the 25 most influential people in sales by OpenView Partners. In addition to writing daily at the Sales blog since 2010, Anthony is also a contributing editor at Success Magazine and ThinkSales Magazine, as well as writing an occasional column for Forbes. Anthony's first book, The Only Sales Guide You'll Ever Need, was a national bestseller. His second book, The Lost Art of Closing, Winning the 10 Commitments That Drive Sales, is released this summer. It's my great pleasure to have him on the show today. So welcome, Anthony.
Thanks for having me.
So share with everyone, obviously, you've got the book coming out. Is this got all your focus just now?
With a book launch, there's nothing else. It's all consuming. It's podcasts, it's guest articles for magazines, it's some television. Next week, I'm at Salesforce.com being interviewed for their podcast and on video, and it's just all consuming for about 60 days. So yeah, we're right in the thick of it.
And what were the lessons that you learned from releasing the first book, the Only Sales Guide You'll Ever Need, that you've taken into the launch for this book?
A couple mistakes that we made. We launched the site to sell pre-orders to individuals very, very early. And we didn't really need that much time for individuals because the purchase price is low for an individual. And we started way late for bulk buys. And we had a lot of clients buy, 1,000 books or 600 books. And we should have started that process earlier. And I'll tell you, we were so far behind on that I had clients that said, I would love to buy your book, but can I at least read it first? And we weren't even prepared to give them a galley copy. So we were far behind on that, but we're better this time.
So for people that don't know your work, take us back. I mean, how did you get into this world of sales and writing about sales? And I know you're going to be speaking about sales as well. Where did it all begin for you?
I started selling when I was a kid, and I never knew I was doing that. I actually got a job telemarketing for Muscular Dystrophy Association, calling people to ask them to do a bike-a-thon in their community. And I quit that job because it wasn't a great deal of fun for me at the time. And I got a job at a skating rink. And they called me and begged me to come back and said, "You're the only person that has 2 bike-a-thons going on." And I said, "I'm never coming back. I work at a skating rink," which was the coolest job you could have at 15 years old. And I started a hard rock band when I was 17. I played music and I did pretty well. And I went out to Los Angeles and I ended up with a mentor who recognized that I was already selling. And he threatened to fire me if I didn't cut my hair up to at least shoulder length and go into outside sales. So I got forced into it. And his point was, look, you're already really good at this. You call people, you figure out how to help them, and they give you the business. I just need you to do that more. And I didn't want to do that. I went to LA. I certainly didn't go to LA to be a salesperson. I had hair to my waist. I'm fronting a hard rock band at night. And I ended up being good at it. And in 1992, walking up the steps to my Brentwood apartment, I had a grand mal seizure. I had what was called an arterial venous malformation, which is a group of arteries and veins that grew into a knot. And congenital, born with it. And I had to have that removed along with a piece of brain that was damaged from the seizures. And I ended up back in Columbus, went into the family business, and grew it from 3 million to 50 million. And then 2007, I had people start asking me to talk to their people or help them. In 2009, I started the blog, I would say in earnest, December 28th. And I've written every day since then, just sharing everything that I know and my observations with a group of people that care about revenue and serving clients.
And what was the initial impetus for the blog? What was the reason for starting to write that?
I don't know. So the original, I went out and I bought thesalesblog.com because somebody else had sales blog. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it. So I've left the archives up, which is a great, if you want to find out how far I've come, Go look at 2008, and I have nothing to say. Everything's like 4 sentences. I'm pointing to a video or something else that I thought was interesting, and I didn't have a voice. What happened was I knew I had a lot to offer because I'm chatty, and I have a lot of opinions and ideas. But I joined Toastmasters about that same time. And at Toastmasters, I got up and I spoke. And I would tell you, Toastmasters can teach you how to speak, but it can do more than that. It can teach you to find your voice. And I found my voice through the act of writing and creating every day over the last 9 years now.
I mean, Toastmasters is a great organization. I know many friends of mine have gone through there and at all different stages in their career. Some of them when they just to build the confidence up for speaking. Others who have actually been professional speakers and just wanted to help their platform skills as well. In terms of that process of going from learning to become a better speaker to actually, as you say, finding your voice, finding your unique thing. Was there anything in particular that helped you kind of get to that point?
I have my own view on this, and it's going to be interesting to hear your view from a blog or a podcast, rather, about creativity. So let me tell you what I think. I don't think you know what your voice is until you start listening for it. And by that, I mean, I started writing, and I didn't know what was going to resonate with my audience. I didn't know what I had inside me. I didn't know what that voice was until I started to write and until I started to speak regularly. And I think what a lot of people do is they wait and they say, when I figure out what my message is and when I figure out what I'm going to do and exactly what it's going to look like, then I'll start trying to create. And that's exactly backwards in my experience. It could be different for other people, but in my experience, just create. And what comes out of you is what's inside you. And you'll start to figure out where you're supposed to go with it after you see it and after people respond to it. And I think that that for me was the process of putting things out there and then looking and noticing what was going on and noticing what was going on inside me while I was doing it.
And can you remember what that particular maybe article was or that talk you gave where you just felt, okay, it's clicking now. This is something's happening here. I'm kind of finding it. Can you remember, was there a specific occasion for that?
There's a number, and I will tell you probably about 10 months into writing, I wrote a post about different levels of value that you create for your clients. And look, some think that you're a commodity, and some think that you're strategic, and some think that you're just a good experience or there's good ROI. And I needed to teach this to someone, and I thought, well, I'll write it down. And I wrote down what I knew and what I saw in my mind, and no one else had ever created a frame like this before that I call level 4 value creation. There's 4 levels. And immediately people started responding to this idea about, wait a second, so I'm really the lowest level when I sell a good product? And the answer is yes, you're really the lowest level when you just have a good product. And that was sort of transformed. Wait a second. Now I started to find something that resonated with people so strongly that it made a difference. And I'd also started writing at that time about what I call dream clients, which are the people you're really supposed to be doing your work for. They recognize your work as high value, as strategic, as something that they care about. And they look at you differently, like what you do is special because it's special for them. And we spend way too little time on those particular clients from a pursuit perspective and for what we do with our life. Who are we doing this for? That started to resonate with people. And literally, true story, on December 28th, 2009, I sat down with my wife and said, I'm going to make a very dramatic life change. I'm going to start getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and writing for the first hour and a half every day rather than going into an office. And within a year, I'll be keynoting sales events. And 10 months in, because of the content that I just described to you, I got a call from the first person that said, we want you to come and keynote and do a workshop for our team. And my very first gig out of the gate, I spoke to 1,000 people.
Wow.
Just like that.
It's funny, as you were saying that, I recently interviewed a speaker called Philip Merry, who's based in Singapore, and he's actually just completed his PhD in synchronicity. And I think he's doing something with one of the universities on it as well, where, that sensation of, basically you put your mind to something, and suddenly, like, things start coming out of the, things just start happening. Obviously, you need to put in the work, but there's just a lot, these opportunities start appearing. And, now there's a whole science, and, Philip talks really kind of well about that. But one of the things that you did, I thought was very interesting, is describe how did you get your book deal, the deal for the Only Sales Guide book? Because it's not the usual way you think of like people going, and at what stage did that come at as well? You mentioned this idea of kind of writing and then going and speaking. Where did the book part come in?
About 2011, I got a call from a publisher and they said, we would love to publish a book with you. And we published a couple of your friends. And I said, great, I have a book. And they said, okay, well, why don't you bang it into shape and send it over to us and we'll have a conversation. So I gave them the Only Sales Guide You'll Ever Need. At the time, though, it was called 17 Elements because there's 17 elements in the book. And the first publisher looked at it and said, we hate this book. So right out of the gate, not exactly what you want to hear your first run with a book. But, there's the story of people having like 111 rejection letters. I only have this one experience. And he said, what does self-discipline have to do with sales? And what does caring have to do? Salespeople aren't known for caring. And why is resourcefulness the linchpin attribute for the first half of the book? And I said, pardon me, but you've never sold before, have you? And he was a publisher. He said, no, I've never sold. And I said, well, I've never published a book, so I'm going to have to trust that you know what you're doing, and you're going to have to trust that I know what I'm doing. And he said, actually, no, we don't want this book. We'd like to go to your blog and scrape posts, and then we'll build something out of that, and you can just sign off on it. And I said, no, that's not going to work for me, so we passed. Then I got another call from another publisher who said, as long as you buy $80,000 worth of your books or some crazy number, we'll publish the whole thing for you. And I'm like, well, I don't understand the value prop. Why do I need you if I'm just going to buy all my own books? And their model, is under great pressure right now. And so I decided, what, I'm just going to publish it myself. And I waited a while, a couple of years, blogged every day. And people kept saying, why don't you have a book? And I'm like, I'm giving you content every single day. Why do I have to stop and do a book? But then I decided, okay, I'll do the book. I wrote it. I hired a really, really good editor. And I was 6 weeks away from publishing it. And I got a direct message tweet from Portfolio, who's my publisher. And they had just published a huge book called The Challenger Customer. And they were looking for sales influencers to say something about the book. And he said, can I talk to you? Because we don't know why you haven't written a book. And I tweeted him back. This is all over Twitter. I said,
it's public.
And I said, I do have a book. And he said, well, I can't find it. And I said, that's because it's not out for 6 more weeks. I'm publishing it myself on Amazon CreateSpace. And he said, why don't you talk to me first? And I said, okay, I'm happy to talk to you. So this call went about as good as the first one. He said, what's the name of the book? And I said, 17 Elements. It's the periodic table of sales success. And he said, that's a stupid title. And I'm thinking, okay, here we go again. And I described the book, and I told him what my plan was going to be to sell the book. And we talked for a while, and he had a lot of opinions. And I said, why don't you read the book and then tell me everything you think I should change over the next 6 weeks, and we'll see how it goes. He said, okay, and if you sell as many books as you think you're going to, I'm going to give you a big book deal when you're done with that. And I said, great. So I sent him the book, and about 6 days later, I got a 2-book deal for an undisclosed amount of money, at least as it pertains to here, this conversation. And they bought the first book and the second book at the same time. And all of that interaction happened because I had the presence with the blog, because I've been creating every day, and they've been able to follow me and see all that.
So you kind of built your platform with the sales blog, and that people kind of knew you were the influence in that space. I'm interested to know, with the blog, and kind of going on the blog as well, were you looking as well to capture a lot of emails as part of that process, so you had that list, that direct relationship there, and it didn't require people just to hopefully come on the blog every day and then learn about the book?
I think that's probably the biggest mistake I made, because I blogged for a couple years without ever asking anybody for their email address. And if you're starting out and you want to build an audience for your work, you want to capture the people that care about your work, and you want to be able to reach them directly. And there is still no better tool than email. And I got smarter after a little while and started capturing the names and built a significant list for sure.
So this new book that's coming out, The Lost Art of Closing, Winning the 10 Commitments that Drive Sales. What did you want to do with this book that was different from the first book? And was that as a result of just having those kind of conversations with people that read the first book, or was it something else that you'd seen, or you just saw a trend that you went, okay, I need to be writing about this?
I sold that book when I sold the first book. I knew I was going to write this book.
So you kind of almost had, it was like a Harry Potter thing. You had the you had the triptych.
I hope it sells as many books as Harry Potter. That would be perfect for me. I knew that the content needed to be written, and I'll say this for an audience that's probably not pure salespeople, but more entrepreneurial. We have to ask people for commitments. And the way that closing has been framed and taught for over a century is self-oriented, it's persuasive, it's pushy, it's manipulative, and it's not how we sell today. And what I wanted to do was write a book for grown-up people that sell today to say, look, when you ask somebody to buy something, you're asking them to change. And the change process means they have to give us time, they have to explore that change, they have to decide it's worth it to do anything about whatever they want to solve. They have to decide to collaborate with you and figure out what you're going to do. A lot of times, if there's multiple people, they need consensus. And there's all these small commitments that it turns out that the small commitments are the ones where people struggle. And then the commitment to buy later on is really easy. And you can simply say something like, James, it looks like what we've done here is the right solution for you. And I feel like we've resolved all your concerns. I'd like to ask for your business and go ahead and give you a contract and move forward unless there's something else that you need. I mean, you can just be very, very direct and very conversational with the language instead of, the old tie downs. And I put it in the launch video. So if anybody wants to watch it at thelostartofclosing.com. Well, I mean, the insurance guys were taught to say, James, you do love your wife, don't you? And you're going to say, yes.
You do the multiple yeses.
The tie downs, yeah. And you do want, if anything were to happen to you, you do want the people that you love and care about to be taken care of, right? Well, I'm going to need you to sign this so that we can take care of your family. And it was this big pressure kind of thing where you felt bad about the interaction. There's no reason people should feel elated or happy or relieved when they buy from you because they know they're now going to get the change that they need. And it doesn't have to be that way. So this is the first book that's ever addressed selling in this kind of a manner before as it pertains to asking for commitments.
Well, I think because I mean, on that, just the other week, I was talking to a number of keynote speakers, and we were talking about what stage do they struggle with, and they said they getting the initial relationship is good, and but finding what the client is looking for, and kind of going through all that process is good, and then the actual event itself, they've got a great kick-ass speech. The closing bit is the bit that they really struggle with. They're never quite sure that, and the different ones use different kind of tactics and different tools, but it's a common challenge I find with speaking to many of the speakers, and this is not just I know creatives really struggle with the whole sales process. Never mind the closing part, the closing stage. So, what advice would you give to maybe someone out there that when they're trying to sell what they're doing, or they're going through that sales process, it's that closing stage that is the most challenging part for them?
Oh, I'll do this in two ways because I want to go back and talk about creatives generally when it comes to commitment gaining. But let's say you are a speaker. I mean, after you do your discovery and you dial in, what is this going to look like and how do I get the outcome from them? You simply just need to say, I think I would be perfect on your platform. And unless you have any concerns, I'd love to be the speaker that you hire for this event. And tell them you want their business. And if they say, look, we're going to look at more people, then you can simply say something like, well, are there any concerns that you would have about hiring me that I can resolve for you? And I would certainly like to be in that consideration, as you go down this process. Can we get back together and explore this again after you've had a chance to talk to a few more people? You just want to control the process. Or you can simply say something like, I think I'm the right speaker, and I'd be interested to know if you think that, if we could take the next step together. Just ask. You're allowed to ask for their business if you have every intention of creating the value that they need, and if you know you're the right person. If you know you're absolutely the wrong person, then don't take the gig and don't worry about asking. And I've had gigs like that where I've listened to what they want and say, I am exactly the wrong person for you. I'm relational, I'm strategic, I'm a long-term play. And you want somebody who is transactional and doesn't care and is shorter term to teach your salespeople that, or your audience this, because I do what I do. And if you want that, then I'm right. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And that's okay too. Let's talk just generally about creatives though, because this is the thing. And maybe you see this too. I'd be interested in hearing your opinion on this. But the thing I notice is they terribly undervalue themselves, and they terribly undervalue the value that they create for other people. And I think a lot of times they don't capture the value and they don't make the kind of money that they want to make because they don't believe that what they do is valuable enough.
Very common. And I think a lot of this comes down to confidence, creative confidence in one way or the other. Well, fears, and there's everything wrapped in that, but they're very, very common.
It's always fear. It's the fear that they're going to think that I'm not good enough, the imposter syndrome kind of thing. The fear of what if they say no? What if they're unhappy? And mostly none of that stuff ever comes true.
So I know one challenge creatives have, and I'm going to use creative artists and folks in the creative industries, let's say, but also I know a lot of speakers have this challenge, or even maybe authors, when your key decision maker is plural. So it's an association. You're speaking to an association, and it's like 6 people in the room that make a decision. Or if you're an artist trying to get a gig at a nice theatre or concert series, there's a group of people, a committee. How do you close when you have multiple players?
That is in the book, and that is just now the way that organizations make decisions. And what you need to do is first determine that you're going to get access to those people, because unless you can elicit their needs, and you know what they really want to do? They want to see you, or they want to hear you listening to them, so that they can see that somebody gets the message from them. This is what I want, and this is what I want. And it's somebody who's going to spend the time and figure out, and listen, this is a bigger deal in B2B where, I mean, you're going to have, according to Corporate Executive Board, who's now Gartner, 7 people in an average deal. You've got to be able to get FaceTime with them. You've got to be able to control the process enough to say, look, if there's going to be a committee, the best thing is to get us all on a call together, or I could do a couple calls with your team, because I want to make sure that we really dial this in, and that what we deliver here together, if I'm the right person for you, is exactly what everybody wants in the way of outcomes and how we're going to navigate that together. Just being able to say those words, and for somebody to go, oh, okay, so you're going to figure out what all of us want, and you're going to build something that serves all our needs, great. You've already increased the preference to work with you, because you know how to help them get what they want. Most of the companies that use a consensus or a democratic decision-making process like this aren't very good at it. And the fact that you can recommend what to do next automatically makes people prefer you better right out of the gate.
It's great. You're actually adding value there.
Yes.
As well, because you're able to maybe disparate people and different, maybe this person VP of sales, that's VP of marketing. This is, and you're able to kind of bring these people into a final consensus, which is, if it's right, hopefully you to book you, or to book you to buy your product. So you really are adding value.
It really is part of the value that you create, is knowing how to help people. And if there's going to be multiple decision makers, you want to try to get them together so they can all see you listening, or all hear you listening. Most of the time, if you're speaking, you're going to do this over the phone or Skype or something like that.
And can you talk in your journey as a creative yourself? Can you talk about maybe a key insight or a light bulb moment you went, this is important, and you made a major decision in terms of the type of work you wanted to do, the kind of clients you wanted to work with, or you made a key distinction?
The key distinction that I made was I am not a good judge of my content. I am the creator. I'm not the critic. And what happens to a lot of people is they get paralyzed, because as a creative, they decide, I'm going to take the role of critic and look at this. And my experience has been, I slave over a blog post or a YouTube video or a piece of work, and I pour my heart and soul into it, and the market goes, meh. And then I have a throwaway idea that I'm actually afraid of even releasing into the wild. I look at it and go, gosh, people are going to be confused by it. They're going to be judging me by what I wrote here. And I don't even know if I should push the publish button. And then I push publish, and people say, that changed my life. And I go, that was a throwaway, because I didn't think that was a big enough idea for it to change anybody's life. But you're not the judge of that. The person who needs the idea is the judge of it. And so when they read it, they go, that speaks to me in this way. And you go, no, this one does. What about this one? They're like, I don't really care about that one. And you just have to create. And I think that the thing that I've learned is the distinction that I made is I create every day. And, the Beatles had 626 recorded songs and 16 number one hits. They didn't have 626 number one hits. How do you get 16 hits? You keep writing songs. I mean, that's how you do it. So whatever it is, you just keep doing the work, and the work gets better, and it finds the audience that needs it when they need it.
And in the creative work do you have an online resource or a tool or a mobile app you find really useful for the for the what you do?
For the capturing?
Yeah, for the capturing or the creating stages.
Yeah, for capturing, I use a task manager called OmniFocus, which is on my phone and my iPad and my computer because I capture everything. Every single idea I think has value, so I capture it, even if it's 2 sentences, and I've got right now on deck about 115 pieces of content that, I've got the kernel of the idea but haven't yet written or haven't yet shot a video for. And the tool that I write in predominantly is called Ulysses, and it's a Mac program. It's a text editor, and I don't write in Word or a word processor. All this does is just text. It's just plain text, and all I want on my screen when I write is just the plain text, because that's the art of a writer. Is it's you in the words, in the sentences, in the paragraphs. So I want that as clean as possible.
And it's great. OmniFocus. We had David Allen on recently from Getting Things Done. I know he's
great guy.
OmniFocus. I used OmniFocus for many years, and I used it in collaboration with GTD and his method. It's a great tool. If you could recommend just one book, then, and not one of your own books, one book and one record or one album, because I know you're a music guy as well. So what would those 2 things be?
Okay, one book for creatives.
Yeah, for creatives. I mean, because obviously your book is going to be, hopefully, it's going to be a Bible for creatives in terms of the selling part. How they sell what they do. So maybe another book that deals with another part of creativity.
There's a couple, and I forget her name, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. You're going to know it though.
Yeah, Elizabeth Gilbert. Big Magic.
Yeah. That if you haven't read that is, I think, a beautiful piece of work for creatives. The second thing is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Probably that's been mentioned 100 times here, right?
It's a great bit. Actually, I'm surprised how few times it's mentioned, because it comes out very soft, but I agree, it's an absolute classic for understanding about resistance and what holds back and blocks and things as well.
The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron's also another one that, artists, I think if you're creative, that's a really good one.
And what would the album be then?
Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder. A double album. There isn't anything better. He played tons of the instruments on it, and it was Stevie Wonder at his maximum strength and power. And I would recommend put it on a Sunday morning and just listen to it straight through, and you're going to be amazed at what comes out of a human being. There's so much in there. Incredible album.
Final question for you here. Let's imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning and you had to start from scratch. So you have all the tools of your trade, all the knowledge you've acquired over the years, but no one knows you. You know no one. You have to restart. What would you do? How would you restart?
I'm going to tell you, I would restart by doing exactly what I did, but I would move up the one thing that was instrumental in helping me build a brand online, and that was building a community. And I found I got invited into a group of 8 other people doing what I was doing at the same time. And we all helped share each other's content, and we all worked very closely together. And I've now grown that group to 52 people. And you want a community of people that are doing what you're doing to share and to help extend your brand. And if you want faster results, build a group like that who will do things for you and do everything you can to promote their work. I'll just say one last word about that. When you look at this group, you would say, well, Anthony, that's kind of dumb because that's all your competitors. But we don't feel like we're competitors. If you want to hire me, then you want to hire me. If you want to hire somebody else, you want to hire somebody else. And we all feel that way, and it just allows all of us to extend what we do into the furthest reaches of the internet and gain momentum way faster.
That's great advice. Final thing, where's the best place for people to connect with you, to find out more about the book, to get their copy of the book as well? Where should they be going?
TheSalesBlog.com. That's the home for everything that I do on the internet. And for the new book, TheLostArtOfClosing.com.
Well, we'll put those links there. If people go to jamestaylor.me, and we'll also have all the links for everything else we've spoken about today as well. Anthony, thank you so much. I wish you all the best with the launch of this book. I know you're going to have great success with it. I'm looking forward to I'm going to get a copy as well. Read it. I've got a long flight. I'm about to head on to very soon, so that's going to be my reading for that flight.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, Anthony. All the best. Hey, James Taylor here again. And if you're interested in living a more creative life, then I'd love to invite you to join me as I share some of the most successful strategies and techniques that high-performing creatives use. I put them all together in a free downloadable ebook that you can get by going to jamestaylor.me. That's jamestaylor.me to get your free downloadable ebook on creativity.